Okay, sorry, it was just telling me the meeting was it's recorded. So okay. It started. I think when I realized that I cannot be a lawyer anymore, when I failed law at UCT. That's as far as I can remember. And when I realized that I'm a forgetful person. So when at home, for instance, they would send me from a young age, they would send me to buy 2 liters of milk and I'll come with 1 liter. Or they'll send me to go and buy, unless then I started writing down. I started writing everything down. But formal writing, I think it came as a surprise even to me, because what I wanted to do was to become a lawyer. And it didn't work out because I failed law at UCT during my final year. And I searched myself and my soul, and I realized that, okay, what is the easiest thing that I can do? Or the easiest thing closer to what I wanted to be? So what I wanted to be when I was growing up was either a lawyer or a journalist. So I thought writing was closer to journalism. And I began to write. And that's when it started formally. That's when it started actually. But as far as writing itself, I can trace it to the fact that I'm a forgetful person. And sometimes I need the assistance of a pen and a paper to remind me of the things I'm supposed to do on a particular day.
All right. Let's go back even further than that, because it strikes me that your career is one of persistence, and persistence is the quality that most writers need above everything else. Now, I was doing some Wikipedia reading, and I see that your first attempt at matric, apparently you failed in 1990, but obviously you came back and passed the following year, and then went on to do a BA, which you've graduated in 1996. Now, that shows some persistence. I mean, why did you fail matric the first time round? I mean, this is not in your career, surely.
Yes. Thank you for that question. So you know, I think the better way of answering it is that I come from a family that claims to be intelligent and also claims to be intellectuals, because my brother started at the University of Natal, others were managing companies, you know, Transnet and stuff like that. So all of them had what we call mathematics by then. So I was coming from a social science point of view. And if you fail, but you remember that in around, I did during apartheid time, I mean, my matric, 1990. So what happens is that mathematics was a forced subject. You had to do it in Afrikaans. You fail it, you have failed. So I must say that in my first attempt, I got an A or a B in English, actually, you know, in higher grade, but failed Afrikaans and mathematics. And at home, they said, he has failed because he doesn't have mathematics. There's no way he can get a job. And then automatically you get what we call ES. By then, ES simply meant that you are not going to the university, but straight to the college or a technicon by then. And then at home, they said, no one of us has ever been to technicon or whatever. You go back to school and get a tertiary. By tertiary, they mean university. And so that's the reason that I went back to the, you know, to do matric again. But in the standards of today, I had passed it. It's just I failed mathematics and Afrikaans. Yeah.
Believe me, you and I share something there. I did too. So there we go. So did you start journalism before you started writing fiction, or did you go into fiction first?
I went to fiction first. Why? Because what happens is that when I went to Wits University, I wanted to do law or journalism. So I applied at Wits University, but Wits University didn't have journalism. So I ended up doing a BA because you couldn't start with a BA law. I couldn't do BA law because my points were lower. So they said you can do BA and then you can do LLB later. So that's what I did actually. So But why did I want to do journalism? Why was it always in my mind? Is because just opposite my home in Shawelo, there used to be a well-known journalist who was called Saima Karenge. It's just opposite me. So it was my brother's friend. And there was no even a fence by then, you know, around our place. So you could talk to my brother, and my brother would say, "Oh, my younger brother wants to do journalism. What can he do?" You know. So there is the one that encouraged me because it was famous. I wanted to be famous as well as a young kid. And why I wanted to do law, and why I wanted to do law was because around my street, when I was growing up, there used to be a well-known lawyer who everyone who was incarcerated for politics, for instance, would go to him and they would pay some money. So he had a very nicest car, the only biggest house in the township that I mean around mine. By the way, I live not very far from, actually, it's a stone throw from Cyril Ramaphosa, President Cyril Ramaphosa's home. And then next, just maybe opposite, I can even call is Laibon Mabaso, who used to be, you know, Laibon Mabaso used to be this political I'm looking for a political party, Black Consciousness. You know,
okay.
yeah, but around that, yeah. I'll remember the name actually. They call themselves Towers. You know, maybe you'll remember. Yeah, but I used to, so I used to live around the politically motivated people, and there was a lawyer who used to make lots of money because people were incarcerated for passes and everything, and he had a beautiful wife, he had a beautiful car and a beautiful house, and I thought, wow, growing up, that's what I want to do. So unfortunately, I was not as clever, you know, when I went to the university. Yeah.
All right, I can understand a lawyer getting to that point, but I can't understand a writer ever getting to that point.
Yeah, but in terms of writing, for instance, I grew up, as I say, my brothers one studied at the University of Natal. So at home, there were always books. The only books that I knew and the only books that I could relate to were books that were African literature, books by Niq Mhlongo, for instance, Kamara Laye, you know, Ellen Kuzwayo. There were books that were always in my home, Chinua Achebe, when I was growing up. And I read those books a lot, actually, before I even went to the university. So when I went to the university, I only when I went to the university in 1994, I discovered there's a course called African Literature. And the reason I took it was not because, I loved it that much. It was because I thought, wow, they say there's academic exclusion in the university. So if I take this course, which is called African Literature, these books I've read them. You know, I've read Bessie Head, I've read Kamara Laye, I've read. So this course, it means that I've passed it already. So I can concentrate on the other courses. You know. So, but it happened that by taking the course, I loved it. I fell in love with it, and decided that I will concentrate on it. And the rest is history because I realized that I also love telling stories. So it's a thing that I discovered that I can tell stories along the way after having taken the course, you know, because I read the stories that made me laugh and I said, oh, these are the stories that when I'm with friends, I will, friends that don't read, I will retell the stories as if they were told by me and they will laugh. And I said, if I can make them laugh, why can't I make them laugh in a paper, you know?
Okay. So when you started writing Dog Eat Dog, how long was that before you actually published?
Actually, I wrote it in, I still remember, in 2000. So in 2000, I was doing my final year as LLB student at the University of Cape Town. So I failed a course, I think in June. It was the law of banking. Because when I went to UCT, actually, I was transferring from Vet University, and I was carrying some courses, but some courses I had to repeat because the structure of LLB at Vet and Cape Town were not the same. So I relaxed a lot because those courses that like law of banking is the courses that I got 90% advance. And when I failed that course, one of those courses in June, I realized that no, this is, I cannot go and repeat this course again for the third time if I had passed it 90%. So I bought myself a computer because Cape Town was boring for me. I come from Joburg, and Cape Town, I thought like, yeah, I thought it was monolingual. You know, it's like you had to know Xhosa and English for and English or Afrikaans, for instance. So in Joburg, I'm conversant in any language. I can speak Sesotho, I can speak any language that I choose. So Cape Town was very, I felt very lonely. So I thought to myself, what I used to do was I used to, there was no emails, there was no, Facebook or whatever then. So I used to email stories to my friends. You know, when you talk to friends who are already still at vet, you talk to them and say, "Oh, remember, you just still remember those things," and they used to laugh and say, "Okay, if I can make them laugh here on the email, let me write something." So I bought a computer and I started writing Doggy Dog. Doggy Dog was meant to be a document of not my life per se, but life in the university, mine. But I had to take some stories that were not mine and made them mine. And some stories happened in Cape Town. So I'll hear somebody saying, "Oh, they don't have a bursary here. I have to stand here," and then I'll document it as if it's mine. So that's how Doggy Dog came about. And from that, so I never concentrated on law again until I failed another course, and I decided, no, I'm leaving this thing. Yeah.
But now, once you'd got the manuscript together, did it take you? Did you battle to find a publisher, or did Kwela snap you up?
I battled a lot. More especially, remember, I regarded myself as a law person, not as a literature person. So what does that mean? It means that I couldn't even differentiate between a publisher, a novel publisher, and a newspaper publisher. But I used to read quite a lot of newspapers. So in newspaper, the first section, well, everyone opens for soccer. I'll go for book reviews. So I would read book reviews, because I was also writing what I thought like was going to be a good manuscript, because every time you read, you get news that, oh, Dan Brown is going to launch his new book and he got $7 million US. And I thought, wow, you can make such money by writing one book. I never thought about anything. I thought maybe I'll make such money. So what I did was to look for a magazine, book reviewers. And I came to Joburg and I went to the Star newspaper in Sawa Street. And I thought, I'm looking for so-and-so. I didn't even know that such a person who has reviewed the book is actually a freelance journalist or some sort, So I went to this and I said, I want to speak to this person because I've got a manuscript here and I'm downstairs, One thing that I am good at is like I confront things, So I went there and they said, I'm looking for so-and-so, I forgot the name. And this person said, no, I'm not a publisher. And I said, okay, wherever you publish this newspaper, I want to be published by them, whatever. And then I said, okay, he said, no, let me list some publishers. So he listed some publishers and I looked at Heinemann. Not Heinemann. I think they were in, I'll tell you, they were in Lower Houghton. So I went to them.
At Donker.
They do educational books. So I went there with my manuscript and I gave it to some guy. And then the guy said to me, 3 months, you are going to get that was in 2002. We are going to give you, wait for 3 months until we give you the feedback. And imagine I don't have a backup. My computer broke. I just gave them a manuscript. So only to find out when they didn't get back to me, what I realized I should do is go back to them after 3 months. And they didn't have my manuscript. This guy had resigned. And until I found somebody and I said, send me to the place where I know where he put it. It must be with other manuscripts. So I looked around. There were about maybe thousands of manuscripts, and I looked for mine until I found it. I was so lucky. And they told me that we don't publish, we publish only educational. We thought yours was about history, because when they asked me, what is your manuscript about, I said, I consider history, my history dates, so not knowing lots of things. And what did I do? I took that manuscript, I hopped into, the following week, I put some money together, hopped into a train without free one-way ticket. And because I've had the name Kwela and it sounded black, and I took my manuscript to there, to Kwela,
Well, it was
and,
named after the Kwela van.
Yeah, and only to find that it's all white, And the worst part of it, there's one particular white intern who is from London, called James Woodhouse, younger than me, and then who says to me, "Oh, what is your book all about?" When you get into the office, you bribe people by talking, sweet talking, and say, "Oh, I have a beautiful manuscript." And I sat down, "Oh, do you want some coffee?" Because it's an intern as well. And I'm an intern. And my English is not well polished. You can tell I'm from the township. So my book is like that. It's the English is not purely English, it's Zunglish. So that's what interested him. And then he started reading the manuscript. Then I waited for another, I think, 6 months, because it kept on coming, and they were saying, "Can you change this?" So in a nutshell, Dog Eat Dog and After Tears were one manuscript put together, flat manuscript. So when they tell me this part is not relevant, I made it. I didn't throw it away. I made it After Tears. So that's how my journey came into it.
I see. And of course, they paid you 8 million rand, did they?
Imagine, there was not even an advance for that, and yeah, there was not even an advance. And I realized that they were also taking chances, because what happens, there was Silo Deka was at the top of his game, and I used to read his work, and I love his work, and his English is polished. And and always when I was growing up, I thought, like, when you want to be a writer, you firstly have to grow old, like other writers, because when you look at writers, they're old people. I mean, experienced people. So, and I thought, like, you have to be experienced in terms of age. And so I delayed. I told myself, okay, it will be fine later, as long as my manuscript is is published. So it was a risk, my risk also, and actually Kwela's risk, let me just say so. But the rest is history. Yeah.
There is. Did you ever get in royalties out of the book?
A lot, actually, not a lot. I'm joking.
8 million rands worth of royalties.
I'm teasing. There was not even money, and let me just say that it's the book. So sometimes, there's a hype about the book. So, but the hype is nice. But in most cases, the hype has to come with sales. So in my case, it was not like that. It didn't come with sales, because what's happening is that people that are supposed to be buying my books, not to say everyone, people didn't read my book. Around my street, almost everyone was happy that I'm a writer, I'm this big thing. I'm in newspapers, I'm in magazines and whatever, and they are reading my books. But the good thing is that maybe you'll find people in the street, around 60 people coming to me and say, "Hey, we have read your book, we love it." But what copy have you read? Do you have? Do you buy a copy? No, they borrowed the copy that was given, that I gave to somebody next door. So the copy will circulate to about 50 people, So when it comes, you don't have royalties. There's nothing, because I started around that time. It was a time when, the culture of buying was different from now. It's different from now. Yeah. There was also not book clubs like we have now, So it was difficult. It was difficult. I didn't. Even now, of course, it's still difficult, but it's no longer the same as before, because now people buy books.
Sure. Sure. Now, there was a 3-year gap between Dog Eat Dog and After Tears, right?
Yeah,
Why,
yes.
why was that gap if you had most of the manuscript already?
Yeah, I had most of the manuscript, but the fact is that I, uh, I already had the man, but it needed to be polished. But I also had started traveling a lot. You know, traveling as much nicer as it is for me actually is difficult when you have to write because you have to settle in a particular place. So around that time is the time when Nick's, you know, my name was on New York Times, you know, occupying 6 pages. There was some time when they wrote 6 pages about me. South African literature is dead, but here is the new one. You know how they do those things, the sensations. And then I had to in Germany that because it appears on New York Times, it goes to Germany, it goes to Sweden, it goes to everywhere. So I was always on the road, and always on the road, and it made it difficult for me to write until I got a residency in Germany for 1 month, actually, to polish what I had already written. But I think, in a nutshell, that was what was difficult actually. And also, I must say that for me, it was difficult for me to write a second book. You know,
and why was
naturally.
that? Why was it difficult to write the second book?
Because you look at the reception of the first one, you wanted. I'm always one of the people that always want to do better than the first one. So the reception of the first one was more like it was mild, you know. And at some point, I was still having hopes of getting back to law, and I still had hopes of having something like a career, you know, having a career oriented kind of what can I say? Like, for instance, I needed, because that's the time when I also went to a school to study um, uh, uh, writing, like
This was Iowa in the US. This
yeah,
was
script
Iowa in the US.
writing. Yeah. When I came back, I wanted to do script writing. I wanted to divert my attention from writing novels. I wanted to do filming, you know. So, and I got a job, full-time job. So, full-time job and writing, actually, that's why I'm unemployed at the moment. And I'm writing like Fred Khumalo is writing, you know, because we're unemployed. So when you're unemployed, you write better, you know. But that's me, actually. I think so. Yeah. So yeah. Before the reason it took time, and I think it's because I wanted to find something that I can say this is my career that can make money, and then writing can be something that it's secondary, you know. So because I've seen that I cannot make that 8 million, you know, and rest and buy a villa where I can wake up nicely at 4 a.m. and write. I was still stuck in the township, you know, still stuck in the same 4-room bedroom, you know. So that's the problem about it. Yeah.
I'm appalled, Nick. I thought you were in this marvelous place on the sides of the Mediterranean Sea. But once we get into the 2010 after that, things seem to change for you and the books become much more regular. And last year you even produced 2 books in 1 year. What has changed in this time? Are you more unemployed, or was it watching all those blue movies, or what was it?
That too. But I think, Mike, more than anything else, I have more time, and I can I work on according to my own schedule. I can charge, but before somebody will say, "Come and write for us, write this and this," and I'll write. Being afraid to charge. Nowadays, I can charge you, man.
This is journalism now.
This is journalism. Yeah. You ask me to write something, I charge you a lot, you know, because that's my career. So by then, I didn't understand that this is a career too. Writing novels is a career too. You know, I thought like, okay, it's a secondary thing. It's only a career for Americans anyway, you know, not South Africans, because here people don't buy books compared to other places. But now I have time. And I can do a lot of things that I can support myself for maybe a month, you know, because I charge. People will come and say, "Oh, give us a scope about black tax and whatever." So, how much are you paying? You know, give us, something compile job at Noah for us. How much are you paying? You know, so I can charge for me to be able to survive for that particular month. And once you are able, I realize that if I don't have trouble with money in a particular time, I can produce well. You know, if I know that the school fees of my kids are paid for the whole year, you know, I can manage here and there. Uh, Even creativity fluid comes, you know. So
Yeah.
at the moment, that's what I'm doing. And also, I'm lucky because I think I'm reached that moment whereby I think I can call myself an established author that is fairly known, and not only in South Africa but also beyond the borders. And I can, easy for me to apply. Not easy as such, but I'm competitive enough to apply for different fellowships that are paying, that I can be able to
Right.
sustain myself, and I can be able to concentrate on my writing. Like, for instance, I've been at the TAD, I've been at the ZILT, I've been at in the USA, the Iowa, different places actually, you know, lots and lots of places where I can, where they pay a little bit of, I mean, not a stipend that I can be able to survive by, you know. I've been to Jayas in South Africa. I've been to quite a number of them. So it seems it's better than before. So what is difference is that um, during the time after writing After Tears and way back home, I think there's a gap of 6 years, because around that time I was full-time teacher, or if you call it a facilitator of script writing at NEMISA, National Electronic Media Institute of South Africa. So that comes with a lot of baggage. You have to, for instance, mark scripts. You have to give students time and whatever. So it takes too much from you, and it takes too much of energy. So when I resigned, I realized that I'm free. I'm a free spirit, and I
Right.
can find something else. Like, for instance, I used to be at the Film and Publications Board, censorship board. You know, yeah. So
We will get to the blue movies part in a moment. But I want to know.
yes.
I want to know when you're free and you don't have to worry about money and you're writing. What does your day look like then, Nick? I mean, how do you go about? What time do you write? What do you write on? How do you handle all that?
To answer that, Mike, I think I'm a seasonal writer. There's a season there where even when I want to try to be to write, I cannot write. Like, for instance, when it's cold, I have to read a lot. I realize that I read a lot. Like this June, I will be reading a lot. But when it's hot, I can write and write a lot. So I'm a person that always have a lot actually, and I write according to I almost write every day, but I'm not a formal kind of a person that can say I wake up at this particular hour and then I can write until this time and have breakfast. I cannot afford all that luxury. I tried it. It doesn't work for me because I live in an environment whereby it's impossible. When you hear somebody saying, I wake up at 3, I live in Soweto. There's around my street, there are 3 shebins uh, just opposite me, you know? So by the time you wake up, you hear somebody singing from the shebin, you know, or just from the street, you know, or a dog barking, or somebody's hijacking a car, you know, such kind of thing. So I don't have that luxury. So what I do, I write whenever I'm inspired to write. So not to say I don't write every day. I write every day, but because writing for me is a process. When I'm walking on the street, on the pavement, I'm recording things I'm observing. That's part of writing for me. And then when I'm very much observant actually, and I always walk with a pen and a paper, to back up my mind and whatever. And I listen carefully to people. So that's part of writing. But if you ask me, when do I transcribe that into a computer? I do that whenever I have, I'm inspired to do that. It can take a week or two for me to process the information that I got last week. And once I do that, I can do a story within a day. But not to say that it will be a clean story. It will be a story that will be done, redone, and rewritten a lot of times. But I do have a story. Like now, I have, I think, 15 short stories that I'm busy with since last year, but they're sitting there. I was supposed to have submitted, but I can't, because my mind doesn't want to. But once I start writing, sitting behind the desk and then typing, I can type the stories, without any break for the maybe even for sometimes go for 12 hours,
Okay. Do you come back and do any rewriting or not?
A lot. I do rewritings. Actually, I do more than 15. My stories, even my novel, everything I have to rewrite. I don't feel like it's written when I haven't written more than 10 times. Right. Sometimes even the smallest thing, I have to rewrite and rewrite and rewrite. Even like, for instance, one of the things that I do a lot, I cannot start a story without like a title. So I can give it a working title, and I said, okay, so Way to Under the Apricot Tree. That can change 50 times. And if I don't get the title right, I'll have to go back and rewrite and rewrite and rewrite and rethink that particular title and read something that will inspire me to think of a particular title. So that's how I am. Yeah.
That particular title obviously worked very well for you because you won prizes. The book was lauded all over the show.
Yes, yes. Actually, and also for me, it was more of a cathartic kind of a novel because, of a short stories, because that very particular short story is a short story that is, there are some elements of truth within it. And then you read some of it, you understand that it resonates with the new novel. Some of the themes within that particular short story. So, of course, it's fictional. Most of it is fictional, but the basis of the story itself is taken from reality, of apricot trees around our street, of things that happened under them,
So, but a lot of your themes and a lot of your work seems to have been drawn from your immediate environment and from the news. I mean, you seem to work very closely with contemporary society.
Yes, I do that a lot. I follow politics a lot. I follow not only politics, even way people live. Like, for instance, you'll be surprised if you pay me a visit in Soweto. People that I hang around with are people that others will despise, because I hang around with people that, for me, these are the people that give me real dialogue, that's why I feel like whenever things that people have been saying about my writing is that it's authentic when you read the dialogue. It's because the dialogue, I listen carefully to what people say, and also from original stories that people have to tell. I fictionalize them because I stay rooted with the people. So, meaning that I would take the stories here and, for instance, go to, like I wrote this Paradise in Gaza, for instance, where bulk of it in Germany as well, And when I'm there, I'm looking into the people from far with my mental eye. It really, I really felt like I'm doing justice to them, because I've lived with them. Even the characters, the description of characters, these are the people that I draw from original people that I'm interacting with them almost every day.
Paradise is an interesting novel, Paradise in Gaza, because you started that as an MA project at WITS in 2009 or 2008, and you then stopped writing it. What happened there? I mean, why did you stop?
I think it happened this way. I'm very bad with, going back to school, So I went to the vets to do MA, and I've realized that bulk of it was more of academic stuff, and I'm not good at academic stuff. So it was a bit taking away from how I wanted to do the novel, because there's a way in which you are expected to write, because people want to see change from Niq, who wrote the so-called township novels, and Niq, who wants to write, more of a closer historical novel. Let me just put it in that way, for lack of a better way. So for me, I felt like the novel way back home was supposed to be Paradise in Gaza, So, so because of the MA, it took away things that I was supposed to. The shape of the novel was taken away, because not because somebody was dictating me to write in a particular way, but because I was envying how others were writing, and I was trying to copy them instead of remaining Niq, who came out because of a particular way he wrote Dog Eat Dog and After Tears. So it was me now trying to be clever, wanting to copy Jem Kuti. I'm just making an example, because this was the center of reference at the MA, and wanting to copy a lot of, Dambudzo Marachera or so and so, forgetting that I have to have my voice. My voice is very much important. I became who I was because of my main voice. So I decided, no, this is not for me. And it was taking a lot from me, because for me, it was like, oh, okay, MA, you simply write a novel and put this academic thing, away. But also to find that they were both important. And I couldn't cope, because one thing for sure is that I was still working as well. So there were lots of things, and I was traveling a lot as well. I couldn't avoid traveling as well, because, I relied on the money that comes with traveling, for instance, stipends and whatever, if you're not working. So yeah, that's the reason that I left, because I felt like my voice was taken away from me, not by anyone else, but by me, because now I was reading a lot of the people that I admired, and I felt like I should write like them, forgetting that I've got my main important voice that also need to be heard. And
but
I decided
it took you 8 or 9 years to get back to the book.
Yes, it did, because and I realized that I did well to dump it aside. I mean, to put it aside, and I tried to getting back to it every time. I tried getting back to it, but it wouldn't come. And then until at some point when I was now traveling to different, I wrote it little by little, when I was traveling. So I decided to myself, I said to myself, I'm going to, I'm going for this, maybe in Belgium for a month. Let me just write one chapter. But you'll find that that chapter will turn into something else. And this is the book in a nutshell that I've rewritten, I think around 30 times, maybe, or 40 times. Rewriting it, and changing also the structure, changing the settings, some of the settings, making some of the settings fictional. And sometimes something comes up and say, okay, let me include that. So it takes away the narrative that you were focusing on, and you could no longer do it that way, for instance, So yeah, it took a lot of, I'll give you an example. For instance, there was no Mozambique part before, And I realized that I need to make a Mozambique part. It's very much important. So the Mozambique part is very recent. And I had to do a thorough research about Mozambique. I had to follow the floods. I had to follow the war. I had to follow to remind myself of things that I know about Mozambique, things that I've been told about Mozambique, write them down. But sometimes they will not work well with the time frames and period, So you have to fictionalize lots of things. That took me forever. And I thought it's the book that was not coming, actually. And when it finally came, I was so glad that because I've been having this pattern since 2009. So imagine, it almost felt like this is the one of the books that felt like after writing it, after seeing it published, it felt like, wow, I had a biggest sickness, or illness, and then only to find that the cure was the publication of this book. So right now I feel pretty spirited and healthy because I've written this book, because it has been bugging me for a long time,
All right. Let's move on to another side of your life altogether. You've edited 2 books. What is that process like?
I think it's the process that needs a lot of good working relationship with people. I'm known to be, closer to many writers. Like, for instance, anyone who wants a number of so and so, they always contact Niq. So it was easier for me to contact most of the people that I thought will have a good contribution to this, like, for instance, to black text. But also what I had to do was to use my contacts to access other contacts, So you have to be in a good relationship with people. You have to be patient. It taught me patience, for instance, that some, for instance, established authors in most cases are the ones that will never, they are already established. You have to be careful how you communicate with them, how you ask them to submit. You have to give them enough time, So it was kind of difficult, for instance, but also other contacts that are not necessarily yours. People expect big money, You have to tell them and to be honest and say, hey, look, I can offer you only this much. Some will write and then will say yes, and then at the end they will never answer your calls. You have to find a replacement. Or so it has been a difficult process, but exciting process at the same time, because this is the kind of work that taught me how important is maintaining relationships with people, and also how important it is to tell our own stories, because in most cases we relied on actually let me just say that I also used the experiences of the authors that I admire. There was lots of authors that have edited before, like Mukratsi, the lot of them, and Bramandla Langa. You have to talk to all of those and then see how it works. But at the end, what is important is the final product. There will be writers that will be very much keen and say, we're going to give you, and be dedicated. They will always talk to you. But what they submit at the end of the day is not what we are looking for. And it's difficult for you to tell them and say, no, look, I'm not going to publish yours. How do you go back to this person who has been calling you every week to say, oh, just look at my story there, and you tell them, I didn't really like it. It doesn't come close to what and what and what, Some will say, go and fix this. And they think like they are established writers. What are you to tell them, You know, sometimes they speak better English than you. You know, so it's a complicated, exciting, but also a passage where you learn so many things. You know, you learn human relations and how important it is. Yeah.
Okay. Nick, just some comments. Juliet has said that she used to stare at Dog Eat Dog in Cavendish exclusive books as a 19-year-old who couldn't afford to buy books, and she's in awe of you and very pleased to be listening to you right now.
Thanks a lot. I really appreciate that. Yeah.
And then Dominique has a question. Would love to know your experiences in Berlin. And this was one of the things that I wanted to get to as well. You had a writer's residency last year of all years in Berlin,
Yes.
of all cities. How did that come about and what was it like?
Actually, I used to, so it's the DAAD. So let me first say, I've always been in Berlin for quite some time. I attended quite a number of things. Actually, I also had a residency in Berlin in Wannsee, but only for 1 month. I had residency in Cologne. I had residency at the Zilt. And the other things that my book way back home is published in German. So for me to this translated into German. So for me to apply, I started applying for DAAD. I think from 2010, and hearing about it from friends. Like for instance, I've got close friends like Helen Nabila has been there. You always communicated once he was there. You know, the late Binyavanga Wainaina was there. We always communicated. You know, so I used to follow them, you know, and say, oh, this is the city also that I love, actually, because I will normally go and visit a little bit. So I've been rejected twice when I applied, twice or 3 times I've been rejected, you know. And so when I was in Berlin, my publisher told me, you can use me, the Wunderhorn, you can use us as your because you need also, what is it called?
Reference.
Reference, yeah. So I used them as a reference. So I think I was one of the lucky people. I should have been there in, I was told, in 2019, actually. I was rejected. But how was I rejected? I was rejected. I was told that they did not know who to take between me and the other person, and they decided to take the other person. We were both competent. So in 2020, I was told, no, please do apply if you still wish. And I decided I want, even if they didn't tell me, I will always apply. So my advantage is that I'm translated into Spanish, into Italian, into Dutch, into Flemish, into French, you know, into German. So I sent all those references to them because I think those are one of the few things that makes your application stronger, you know. And on that basis, for instance, I was, taken. And also the fact that I used to be in a residency in the USA, the residency that is well known, Iowa. So in 2008. So that was also an advantage because you have to declare how much time have you spent outside of your country. And that came in handy as well. And also the fact that before that I've been to a residence in Berlin, right in Berlin, in the Zilt also, and also in Cologne before that. So I think my application was stronger because of that, you know.
All right, but it also comes down to persistence. I mean, and that's what you've shown throughout your career. You've got to be there, otherwise you don't get these things.
Yes, exactly, Mike. Yeah.
Yeah. Are there any questions? Because I've been hogging the show. All right, just before we wrap up, Nick, you had a stint having to look at a lot of pornographic movies on behalf of the citizens of South Africa.
Yes.
This must have been very traumatic for you.
Yeah, at first it's traumatic, but it's nice. It's nice. Imagine, I mean, it introduced me to so many things that I wouldn't have known, and
Of course
that,
not.
yeah, but also in a way that in writing, it strengthened my writing, because in writing you also need to write about things that people don't know, or people that are shy to talk about. So you don't, and you also watch not only porn, but also different kind of movies. But that in itself, also the authority to say, I'll give you an example. The fact that uh, it made me to read closer to South African Constitution, which I would not have done, even though I did law. I would never, so I would apply Constitution every day, to, for instance, give an age restriction to a particular movie, or to say this is double X rated. You cannot just simply say this double X rated without using a Constitution. And that strengthen your writing in a way that you feel like when you are writing, there are always voices that are talking to you. What are people saying? Am I writing the right thing for the people? What is the Constitution saying? What is the law of the street saying? So it strengthens my writing. And I just want to say this was one of the most beautiful jobs that I also enjoyed. As you say, Mike, I watched sometimes 15 porn movies a week, depending on the submission, for instance. But for the mere fact that you say you have to look into the Constitution, and you know that a porn like this is degrading to women, and this is not right for our generation, so so and so should not watch. If I watch, I mean, one woman against 5 guys, if I don't give it a particular age restriction to say this is XX using the Constitution itself and the Bill of Rights, this might not be doing justice to my country, and I might not be helping to build a country. So I feel like, wow, I helped in nation building as well. But also the fact that it made me to know, how the world operates. For instance, sometimes it helped me to fight against child pornography, for instance, which has been rampant. I mean, it's still rampant, human trafficking, it made me to fight. I realized that by saying this is the movie that should not be out there consumed by public, and for me to put an X for it, I'm protecting harmful material that can be exposed to children before they mature. That made me feel proud, in a way.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, but still a very different occupation from the quietness of writing.
Yes.
Niq, if for a new writer, for somebody who's not published yet, who's trying to break in on the scene, what advice would you have for them?
I think I always give the same advice, is that it's important to read. And if you are a South African, it's important to read firstly for local stuff. Read a lot of local stuff. It will help you to identify a gap. You cannot write about South Africa and then you want to write about the township. If you haven't read Niq, you'll keep on repeating what Niq has said. But if you have read Niq, you realize that, oh, there's a gap that is missing here. Let me write about it. So read a lot of local material. It's very much important. And then writing, for me, it's practicing. You keep on writing, and then you, what you do, you share, you choose somebody that you are closer to. That's what I also did. I had friends that I would send some material and say, oh, read this. And then they will do that, you know. People that you share the same values, people that you share the same stories. Like, for instance, you cannot send it to anyone. You share with people that you can also share books with. So number one is reading and reading and always reading. And then you can become, that's the only time you can become a better writer. More especially also if you're a South African, it's more important that you read also local stuff, as I say, so that you can identify what is the gap in what has been written in South Africa. Yeah.
Great. Niq, thank you very much. Just a sign off from Dominique, who says you've had a very interesting career, and clearly the legal studies set you up to be a censorship, to watch porn censorship. And she says, thank you very much for what you had to say. And once again, my thanks too for the hour that you've spent and for the generosity of telling us about your career and your books. So thank you very much.
I really appreciate you inviting me, Mike. Thank you a lot.
Thanks, Niq, and bye.
Thank you.
And
Bye-bye.
to everyone else, thank you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Well done, guys. That was very nice, actually.
Thanks, Evelyn. And Corrie, if you can hear this, hi.
No, she's muted, Corey.
She's muted, okay, but she can probably hear me. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
She's from Germany.
All right. Thanks very much for setting it up. We'll see you. We'll be in touch later. Thank you. I'm out here. Bye.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much.